All companies today are being disrupted by startups and by technology, and they want guidance on what to do because they have the assets, they have the brand, they have the people, they have everything a startup would kill for. They just can't get out of their own way.
Welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators Podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today is Terry Jones. Terry is the founder of Travelocity and served as the founding chairman of Kayak. He's written 2 books, one titled On Innovation and the other titled Disruption Off. He is a powerful voice in the world of entrepreneurship and has established himself as a thought leader in our ever-changing digital world. Our conversation covers all topics for meeting planners on how to leverage and optimize technological tools to make your events more productive, more engaging, and wanting attendees to come back for more. It's a wide-spanning, rich conversation. We appreciate you joining us. You're going to be smarter for it. Terry, welcome to the Keynote Curators Podcast.
Thanks. It's great to be here. And ladies and gentlemen, pardon my cold. I have a little scratchy voice. I don't sound like this on the podium.
Well, you're a trooper for continuing even with a little bit of a hindrance in the voice. The important thing is what you have to say, and that's why we're here. Terry, before we really dive into the deep end, I've known you for years. I also know your brother for years, 2 of my favorite keynote speakers. But I want you to say in your words, taking into consideration that our listeners and our audience are primarily meeting professionals or anybody that operates in that ecosystem, event marketers, event planners, conference planners, all that ecosystem of event professionals, meeting professionals, and really where you're at right now in your keynote speaking, what's important for them to know about you and whatever else you think that, we need to know about Terry Jones to continue forward with this.
Well, I've been in business for a very long time. I was CIO at American Airlines. While there, I founded Travelocity.com, took that public. So that was my first internet unicorn, $1 billion company. I ran that until it was taken private and then actually started speaking right after that. My brother got me into speaking, but I was doing other things and got involved with a group of travel folks, and we created Kayak.com, where I was chairman for 8 years, and we sold that for $1.8 billion. So out of that, I wrote a book on innovation. I've written a book on digital disruption. I've served on 21 boards of directors of startups and Fortune 500 companies. So a lot of people talk about innovation. I've done it. And I think that's the difference, is that I can deliver to audiences the veritas of somebody who's actually built billion-dollar companies, who's led almost 15 billion in exits in the companies where I've served on boards. And it really has the stories to tell about how this works. All companies today are being disrupted by startups and by technology, and they want guidance on what to do because they have the assets, they have the brand, they have the people, they have everything a startup would kill for. They just can't get out of their own way. What I'm trying to do is convince people that disruption and innovation are just 2 sides of the same coin. You only call it a disruption because you didn't do it. If you did it, it would be an innovation, but you didn't. But you have the resources to. So that's what I do in my talks, is give them real world takeaways about how to deal with the world that's moving at the speed of ChatGPT, for example.
Well, taking that 2 sides of the same coin, curiosity seems to be, I don't know if it's the most important trait, right? But curiosity is a trait of leaders that gets them into a mindset that's important to innovate and to disrupt. With today's technology, ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, really, are they asking the essential questions with today's fast-changing world? Yeah, I hear the term digital leader, digital landscape. All those skills and traits that, people talk about, you've actually lived. Can you talk about that as values or core virtues for leaders and organizations, the curiosity and how that can foment the generating of ideas?
I think curiosity is a very important asset. people ask me, what's my skill? I'm curious. I read a lot and I read all kinds of different things about technologies and business models and leadership. And because I'm curious about it. So curiosity is very important. And it's also important to let people know that you are a curious leader and you want them to be curious about things and you want them to innovate. And the reason people don't innovate mostly is not because they're not curious. It's because they're afraid of what could happen if they fail. And I tell people that, what you really have to do is kill projects, not people, and make examples of that. Yeah, Seth's project didn't work. It's not Seth's fault. We're going to give him another project. It was a bad idea. The customer didn't like it. And guess what? We're going to learn from it. We're going to spend a lot of time learning from it. So you don't punish, right? Why do sports teams watch game films? Not to assess blame, but to ensure victory next time.
Right.
And, that's how you get the ball rolling, because the best ideas in your corporation are at the bottom. The people on the manufacturing line, the people in customer service. Hey, Travelocity started paging people, and paging, that's how long ago it was, in 1998, to tell them when their flight was late. That idea came from a customer service agent who said, why do I have to answer the phone to do that? Why don't we just page them? We started sending emails to people to say, hey, the price went down on the flight you looked at. This is 25 years ago. That idea came from an engineer, but we had a system where we could listen to those ideas and to our customers. It has to be the leader that reaches down through kind of the impenetrable layer of middle management and gets to the people on the line and says, I want to hear this and we want to do this. And if everybody knows they're not going to get punished, then they'll try things.
I love that. Kill projects, not people. First of all, people you develop, you expand, you transform their relationships, their capacities. What people want, and studies have shown this even, more so post-pandemic, is compensation is important, but before compensation is advancement and feeling like they're taken care of. It's a broad idea, but taken care of means the safety or the ability to throw ideas out and have them
happy with what I'm doing. I'm interested in it. I want to come to work every day. It's fun. It's cool.
Right.
That is definitely more important than compensation.
And not afraid to have an idea that they put forth, either kind of be poo-pooed or thrown out or considered and then put off to the side for the moment. I
heard a quote the other day that I think it was from somebody on Panera Bread who said, I'm constantly amazed how many people in a corporation can say no and how few can say yes. And it's about letting everyone say yes and getting that idea over the finish line. I use a video example in my speech of a pinball machine. And an idea comes out and it starts bouncing around. Hit marketing. Marketing says that's a dumb idea. And hit service says, well, we couldn't fix it. And maybe you get past them. And then manufacturing says, well, we can't build it. And then you get down to those flippers at the bottom. And those are finance and legal, the real killers, right? And whenever I show that in a corporation, everybody bursts out laughing because that's exactly what happens. Instead of saying, how can we do that?
Yeah.
Look at those little guys over there in Silicon Valley who have two guys and a dog and, $2 million. We have everything they need.
Right.
We just have to say yes.
I don't know which branch of the military or which service in the military it is, but something about only the commanding officer really has the hard no. The rest are empowered, considering or trying to imagine that if they were the captain or the commander or whatever the commanding officer in that situation, to say yes.
That's wonderful.
Unless people are going to die.
Yeah.
Major stuff's going to get damaged, or, I forget what the actual protocol of it is. And that's really removing that constraint. Even in my company, where we were during the pandemic to now, we've experimented and things have literally shifting sands. It's just week to week, tweaking this, throwing that out. And in the beginning, as the leader, I was a little bit voice in the back of my head, Terry, like, oh God, but I came in so gung-ho with, this is the idea, this is how we're going to deploy it. But the writing on the wall was 10 days later, we need to shave this out. We need to fortify this, and we need to focus on this. Well, and the voice disappeared after my team just took hold of it.
That's great. because I'm a big believer in prototyping. And now we can prototype with 3D printers. We can do AI testing on the web. We can do all kinds of stuff. Don't fall in love with the prototype. Listen to what people say
Yeah.
and go back and change it because it's not going to be right the first time. And that's okay. Change it, try it again. So I believe in testing. And look, as Jeff Bezos says, it isn't an experiment if you know the outcome. So you're not going to know exactly what's going to happen and you may not like it. And then you have to change it. But
Right.
experimentation is key. And as companies get bigger, they drive out risk. And, they don't want to experiment. And you have to do that. I mean, Travelocity was a huge experiment inside of American Airlines. Our customers were travel agents, and we're building something to go around them.
Right.
But we knew somebody was going to do it, and it may as well be us. And in the end, we supported both channels. It was a risky thing to do.
Very risky.
But it made billions of dollars. And so you have to take those risks in business and in life all the time, and particularly now when things move so quickly.
Exactly.
I mean, it took 75 years for the telephone to reach 150 million users. It took, ChatGPT, 2 months?
Yeah. Yeah.
So things are moving faster.
Right. Two 30-day months, not even 31-day months.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Continuing on this train of thought, I've read that you've said, and I'm beating up the quote a little bit, but it's something like the last 25 years have been about who can build things the cheapest.
Yeah.
And the next 25 years will be about who can build things the smartest, or as they say in New England, the smartest.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that for us.
Well, between the cloud and AI, we have the ability to make products so much smarter than they were. And now consumers are pretty addicted to that. I mean, we've gotten used to our phone updating itself, but I have an oven, for example, it's called a Brava. It cooks with light. It's a very fast oven. And you could cook a steak, potatoes, and green beans at the same time because the AI knows where they are. And that oven gets updated every week with new recipes. My Tesla gets updated every week. John Deere has intelligent tractors. They don't have to wait till the annual meeting to hear from the dealers, well, what are people doing with tractors this year? They know every minute. And that allows them to branch out into doing weather prediction and soil sampling and the right fertilizer and a whole bunch of other businesses because the products are smart. And having smart products is way more customer attractive than just the cheapest thing. Now, you still have to be price competitive, but people will pay a lot for something that makes their life easier because it's smart.
And one of the smart, I follow you on social media, Monique, who is your right and left hand. She's your tailored human ChatGPT, keeps me abreast. And we talk about the work you're doing and, where you're presenting and what's really resonating so that I'm curating you the best I can for my buyers. I know that you're involved, and to the extent that you can talk about it, using artificial intelligence for taking kayak. Is it kayak on steroids? I don't want to belittle or diminish your work, but
well, I'm not with kayak anymore, but I'm working with several companies who are using AI in travel and in other fields. One of them had an idea and he said, I want to go to a concert, but I can't book the travel on the concert page when I buy the ticket. And if they happen to be hooked to Booking or Expedia, it's what we call a punch out. You just bang and you're in Expedia. Well, Expedia doesn't know about the concert or the dates or anything else. So it's kind of lame. Right. So he built a one line of code drop-in for any website so you can sell travel in 5 minutes. But it adopts the colors of the website. It knows the context of the website. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Now he's put ChatGPT on top of it. So natural language. So you can say, I want to go to New York tomorrow, stay at the plaza and come back Friday. And that's what you put in to get your result. Now, that's interesting for air. It's much more interesting for a hotel, which we're just coding now. So with a hotel, you can say, I want to go to a deluxe hotel in the Caribbean in January. I want Topgolf and my wife needs a spa.
Right.
Now, to do that on any travel site today, you have to know the city in the Caribbean you want to go to and the dates.
Right.
And you get a bunch of hotels. Then you click the spa button, then the hotels refresh, and then you have to look through the pictures in each one to determine if that spa is a hot tub or a building. Well, it's ridiculous. So that's
Right.
going
And awards programs, if you're loyal to
oh,
certain.
yeah. Why not just use my miles? Show me where I can go for 45,000 this weekend, right?
Right.
So AI is going to be built into the user interface for sure. I'm working with another company in business travel. This could help even meeting planners. About 20% of business travel bookings are done via email today. A lot of people don't know that. Send an email. I want to go to London, stay at the Lanesborough, come back in a week, need a rent a car. Well, those go to a human who then has to put them into Amadeus or Sabre using the tools there to make sure it meets corporate policy. Then they take a bunch of screenshots and send it back to you. That's a pretty
Right.
horrible way of doing business. So what we've done using natural language again and AI is we just read the email and we send them 3 options that conform to travel policy and personal preference. And they just have to click on it. It reminds me of back in the 70s when I had an assistant. I'd lean out the door and say, "Hey, Sharon, I want to go to New York tomorrow and come back on Friday." Slam the door. It would be done.
Right.
Well, this is like that. So rather than spending 30 minutes mucking around in a corporate travel product online, and they're pretty bad, they haven't changed in 20 years, just send an email and get an answer, or send a text, or send a Slack. So those are pretty interesting examples of how AI is being deployed in travel now. We're analyzing images, we're reading reviews to really have a better shopping experience. I also am an advisor to a drone company, and we're delivering pizza in 3 minutes in New Zealand. And a lot of AI involved there on the routes and getting the pizza and figuring out who to deliver next. And Domino's is very, very happy because CEO there says, "Look, we win if it's hot and fast.
That's
And if you
right.
deliver by drone, it's hot and fast." So
Right.
lots of interesting stuff happening.
Yeah.
And a lot of people trying to figure this out because the big guys will be able to do it themselves. But this company, Copilot, I'm working with, who's built this engine, we want to be the engine for all the little guys who have to
Yeah.
figure this out.
The long tail.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
me, you mentioned event planners in hotels. Do you see other areas for disruption innovation for meeting professionals using this technology, not as a novel, but as a real tool to optimize, to create efficiencies that would then free them up for other things like creativity and expanding the experience, if you will, enhancing the experience, enriching the experience of attendees at events, of which so many you've been to?
Right. Well, certainly I think that, in preparing materials, whether it's text or images, this is going to speed that work up like crazy and already is. Because I tried this out the other day and there was an article about it where I wrote a little paragraph to GPT about the meeting and it basically built my FAQs in 5 minutes. I had to clean it up, but it did that work. It can create the image that you need rather than looking through 1,000 stock images. Beyond that, I think there'll be some interesting questions about how we can use these products to create super interesting videos for our customers and using chat to be more interactive. You can also use chat with them up front to really understand what do they want to get out of the meeting? Who do they want to see? And, I'll give you an example from travel. Maybe you can extrapolate it to meetings because I don't run meetings. I just show up. But in the AI company, my last AI company, you come out and say, "I want to go to Thailand." We immediately show you pictures of hotels in Thailand. But we then say, "Why are you going?" "Oh, I'm going for my anniversary." "Okay. Different hotels, romantic beach photos." "And I want to play golf." "Oh, reviews of the golf course." "How much money you got?" $12. "Okay." Going to change again. But
Right.
every time we're giving them an answer. So if you can get people in a dialogue with a actually smart chatbot that can
Right.
answer their questions, you can learn a lot more about why they're coming. And, that's gold. I wrote an article for Travel Weekly about personalization and chat. Well, if during the reservation I chatted and told the AI I'm coming for my anniversary, we know when your anniversary is. We should save that and use that next time, right? Next year, we could offer you to come back or to a different hotel. We could also send it to the front desk who could say, "Welcome for your anniversary. Here's a bottle of champagne,"
That's
right?
right.
That's a level of intent that we don't get from any hotel system or OTA, because all I typed in was Cleveland, June 8th.
That's right. I mean,
Right.
you might get it from reservations. What's the purpose of your visit? But even if
Doesn't
I
go
say
anywhere.
it's my anniversary, it's a crapshoot if they're going to come back and be like, we'll put an amenity in your room or
Yeah,
something.
right. Right.
Yeah,
But most reservations aren't made over the phone. And we're stuck in a bunch of boxes. And now we're not. We can actually dialogue and learn things. And well, what is most interesting for you? Well, I want to see the AI exhibit. Okay, well, that's June 4th. Let's make sure your calendar is set up so you can do this and do that and, work it out. So you have the right appointments. You see the right vendors that we want you to see. I mean, there's a lot that could be done as people think about how am I going to interact with our guest in advance, learn about them, and you could do it afterwards too.
yep,
What didn't they like? Um,
exactly.
I think we need to do more learning in meeting planning. Everybody has an app and they allow you to rate things. The question is, where does that stuff go?
ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. And meeting professionals need to be using it. For the experience of the attendee, it can really enhance their participation, whether it's translating for a different language or asking the attendee what it is that they want to get out of the meeting. And then they can have a agenda routed up to the point of which ballroom or which salon to go to for what breakout session, what panel, which keynote speech, and how that fits into what the attendee is looking for. That way, their experience is tailored and, dare I say, curated. And that's one way meeting professionals can use the tool to enhance, enrich, and expand the attendees' participation. What are your thoughts on that, young
Oh,
Terrell?
I think it's absolutely right. I think I talked to a fellow speaker the other day, and he was talking to CEOs, and he asked them, how many of the 200 people in this room have used ChatGPT? And it was about 10. Well, that's wrong.
10%?
Yeah, about 10% had tried it.
Wow.
I would like to ask everybody who attending this podcast to make sure they go try it and
Yeah.
just play with it, because you have to be curious. You have to understand what it can do and what it can't do. Right now it's doing lots of writing and lots of question answering and lots of image creation. Well, you create lots of content, so it can be helpful there. But the
Yeah.
real exciting stuff is going to come as these tools get built in with other tools. So, for example, Microsoft just announced that its optical character reading programs that have been around for a long time to scan things, turn them into an image. Now they bolt on GPT, it's reading all the words from the scanned images. So now, as I scan in a form, I can act on that form very quickly. Building it in is where it's going to get super interesting. And for trade associations, using these tools against the data you collect, because all trade associations collect data, will allow you and your members to ask better questions. Back when I was working with IBM, I talked to some of the guys in the three-letter agencies in Washington about how they were using the AI. And they said, first it was about getting answers faster, but then we realized we could ask harder questions. And that's when it gets important. Let's ask harder questions about what people thought about the experience or what the content was that we had there and how we can change it for them and get feedback on the content we create up front. There are lots of ways that people are building these tools into meetings. I'm sure somebody's going to build it into a scheduler, as you suggest.
Yeah.
I was with a guy yesterday who was working with a large factory and using these tools to optimize the output of the factory. So they're being built in all over the place. And meeting planners should be using them just like everybody else.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple things like, oh, you want to go to this session on this day, we recommend at this time. And by the way, if you're coming from the general session, here's where the bathrooms are. Here's where they're serving lunch. I mean, mundane things, but it just takes it off your plate and you're not at the last minute. Where do I go and what do I do? And this brings the experience. There's less friction
Well,
in
and
these.
personalization gets
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
So I know you come from this part of the industry. We think these are the sessions, that would be best for you.
That's
And
right.
and it can easily pick that for people.
And I'm doing a similar application with my clients. Why Terry Jones? Now I make the case, but now if I have other resources and tools to fortify it, I read your articles, I read your posts, I'm in touch with your office, I know what's current, but why not augment it, or why not fortify it with an additional thing that I can then clean up, as you said, or trim or polish, that will tailor it to what I know about that group, whether it's agriculture, in the energy sector, healthcare, that I
Well,
can then dial it
sure.
in and
I
make
mean,
the case.
today on the websites of most bureaus, it says, what's the topic? It's innovation, it's diversity, it's this or that. Well, every meeting has a theme. What if you just put in your theme?
Great idea.
I mean, that's a different way. This is what I want to get out, or to be able to say, look, I spoke to top car dealers the other day, and in the call, they told me what they wanted, right? But I was already hired. But before that, if somebody said, hey, I want a speaker who can talk about innovation and disruption, who knows something about dealers, knows something about autos, has spoken to these kind of groups before. That's the kind of question you can't ask today. They can ask
Right.
you, but they can't ask the system. And many times before they talk to you, they're already looking on your site for speakers. And you might have sent them in a very different direction, or you might, hey, you got a lot of speakers. You might not remember. Hey, Terry
Right.
dealt with travel agents, they're dealers.
Right. No, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think many of my clients are 80% along. I'm making up a number, 70% along the journey of what they think they want. And mostly they know what they want. But sometimes, like you said, it could be a very broad subject: leadership, communication, diversity, disruption, even artificial intelligence, which is a broad subject in and of itself.
Yeah.
But what we need to do as the keynote curator is then, if the through line of hiring the speaker can start at that conversation, not post hiring and then calibrate in, dial in your comments, and that's where you tailor your remarks.
Right.
Fantastic. And it's worked. But buyers are smarter, attendees are smarter, more sophisticated. And the demand and the appetite for the reasoning and the impetus and the drive behind hiring a speaker starts in the search.
Yeah.
And the framing and the contextualizing of it starts in the search, so that by the time you're on stage, marketing, messaging, the invitations, have that through line has been woven all the way through.
Well, and maybe if we're tied together better, rarely do speakers get to talk to buyers up front. Usually it's a very indirect process. It's not even an RFP process. But if somebody sent out something, maybe you did, yeah, we want a speaker on innovation, but these are the key things that we're trying to get out of that.
Right.
This is what we're trying to change. How would you answer those three questions, Mr. Jones? Well, actually, I've been there and done that. And here are
Right.
my three answers. And somebody else might say, well, I've read 3 papers about it. Maybe you want the guy who wrote the papers, maybe you want the guy who did it, but at least you know. So
Right.
that's a level that doesn't exist in our disassociated way we do our business today.
Right.
I mean, sometimes you'll reach out to us and ask those questions.
I use the word with money, I use ammo, but maybe there's a bridge to optimize or bring an efficiency to it, where the chat or the AI or something, or
Right.
there's an arsenal of information for each
Right.
industry.
Where if I ran GPT on all of my data, right, the depth of stuff that I have, which isn't on your website, all of it, then somebody could ask a question about that speaker. And they
That's
say,
right.
oh, he built Travelocity inside American Airlines? Well, he's an entrepreneurship guy? Oh,
Right.
well, he could probably tell the story to our guys because they're all comparing them to startups and they know they can't be a startup. How did he do that?
And he delivers pizza?
Yeah, and he delivers pizza. Exactly. So I think we don't know the depth of what speakers have. And we know the decisions are made in 2 minutes of video. Right?
That's right.
That's
That's
it.
right.
And
And often on
anybody can make a
recommend.
great 2-minute video, but can they make a 60-minute keynote that leaves the audience asking for more, where they have clear takeaways and they've answered the key questions that you're trying to get people to think about in this year's meeting? That's a
Yeah.
different story because
Yeah.
some speakers are, fly in, give the speech, fly out, doesn't change. I mean, I always change my speech because I'd be bored if I didn't.
Yeah.
And well, of course, talking about GPT, I have to rewrite it every day, but I always try to tease out in those calls, what is you want? Because you want return on meeting. You want ROM. How do you get
Right.
return on that meeting? Sometimes people give a great speech and everybody's excited and they walk out of it and say, well, it's time for lunch. That's the end of that.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
you want people buzzing about it. And
Well,
the more I know, and the more we use these tools to communicate, the better speaker choice that meeting planners can make.
yeah. I always say in the meeting professionals, as you know, Terry, you're on site, you get mic'd up or you bring your AV and, there's a sound check or a moment prior and you meet somebody who might introduce you and everything, but they're dealing with security, food and beverage, transportation, so while they pay attention to this, they might get a directive saying, we want somebody on innovation or we want somebody on diversity.
Right.
And I'm like the speaker in the sense, well, what's the impetus behind that? Why is there interest? Are there initiatives? Has there been an acquisition? Is there a challenge that we're looking to kind of speak to in an elegant way? And that texture and layer
Let's go.
is what has that tailoring happen, that personalization.
Right. And that's in travel, what we call capturing intent. I want to go to Thailand for my honeymoon. Now I have intent. Wow. I could do something with that. And it's the same thing in speaking. I want a speaker about innovation because our company is changing to electric cars and we've got this huge challenge. So I want a speaker on innovation and disruption who can help us think through those challenges. And how do we do this with our dealers? And how can he make people feel comfortable with that change? In my disruption speech, I show 10 disruptive technologies that are changing the world. And I do that up front. And the reason is basically to scare the crap out of the audience, because then they'll listen to the second part of the speech is, what do you do about it?
Right.
I want to get them a little sitting back. And I generally try not to talk about their industry too much. I show them what's happening in other industries and let them connect the dots.
That's right. Because they're smart enough to connect the dots.
Right. But if I say, well, you could do that in the dairy industry, they're like, yeah, that guy doesn't know about cows.
Right. Right. He
say,
eats yogurt. That's about the extent of his dairy.
Look what they did over there. Although I just did a dairy industry gig and they are so advanced. They're using AI like crazy. It's great for them to connect the dots because then they walk out talking about how they can do it.
I know this is kind of the end of the road on AI and businesses and customer service, but I read Airbnb's CEO recently said they plan to incorporate AI into their app and make it kind of the center of how it runs.
Right.
What organizations, companies are excelling the most at incorporating not just AI, but innovation in general today?
Well, I think, you look at the financial services industry is deeply into AI. You look at retail, they're deeply into it for logistics and getting the right product, the right time and pricing. Lots of people are going to be building it into their app. There already is AI in many apps, but it's going to change the user interface. We're going to be using voice much more. We're going to be using natural language much more. The auto industry, pushed by Tesla, is hiring more software engineers than people to build cars because they know the car is going to be just a moving computer that we're going to use for all kinds of things. So those industries are moving very, very fast. Travel, the biggest part of e-commerce, has been pretty slow, but I think it's going to change quickly now because people are seeing in GPT, they can plan some pretty cool itineraries. They just can't buy them yet. It's not connected. So that's going to get connected. So I think, every industry is trying to innovate. Our delivery muscle gets so much stronger than our discovery muscle. We keep churning things out and answering emails and building products, and we forget that somebody's going to come up and bite us in the ankle and take us out. And we always have to be thinking about that. And that's why, I don't have to go speak. I like to go speak. I want to help corporations change. And that's exciting for me. And I love, talking to the people afterwards and getting them excited because we have this wonderful country with a wonderful economy. But if it doesn't change, it's going to have trouble. We just have to continually change.
Yeah. And that's back to the beginning of our conversation, the mindset, the curiosity, the culture of being able to mess up or, prototypes. You quoted Jeff Bezos and all of that. And, that's what's important. And that's why I love working with you. And this isn't just like an inauthentic, timely kind of stroke. It's that, you stand on the ground of forwarding an organization, whether it's a trade association or a corporation or whatever industry, forwarding their objective, their mission, their initiatives,
Right.
so that you can make that immediate lasting impact. And that's pretty cool to see up close and personal. I've seen it.
Well,
Um,
it's great fun and it's quite rewarding when people come back and say, "Yeah, the next day people were talking about the methods you discussed."
yeah.
Uh,
I can tell you this, Terry, even in our podcast, there's one or two ideas that I think I'm going to really challenge our team to find a way to weave in for what we do,
Great.
because it's cool, but we're not doing it because it's cool. It's cool to hear the ideas from the font, from the horse's mouth. And then, look, we're just going to borrow it and make it our own.
Hey, be inspired.
That's right.
You look at other things. It's not stealing. You just get inspired by what other people are doing. And, for me as a speaker, I always try to go to the trade show if I can, because I
Yeah,
want to see what's selling. And I always try to go around the edge, because the edge are all the little guys with the new things. And, then you could talk about some of those, even put one or two of them in the speech. People go, wow, he's one of us,
yeah,
but then I'll take what I learned at the Dairy Association and I'll use it with Chrysler,
that's right.
because we have this great ability to kind of spread the seeds of ideas around to other companies, because everybody's doing something cool. The future is here. It's just unevenly distributed. So we can help be the Johnny Appleseed and take those ideas around to more people.
Well, Terry, I think Johnny Appleseed is a good point of departure into our final section of our
Okay.
conversation. I always love this part. We call it 20 questions. It's not a full 20 questions, but the spirit of it is it's a rapid fire. So,
Okay. I'm going to sit
one
up.
or short.
Get ready here.
All righty, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. What's the most interesting thing about you that we wouldn't have learned from reading your resume?
I almost bought a boys' camp when I was 12 and was going to run a camp in the wilderness. Been there for 12 years. And then deal fell through. So I ended up being in the travel business. But 8 years ago, I got asked to be on the board of a camp. And so I'm back doing what I love in the North Woods and helping boys and girls to get out in the wilderness and turn off their phones.
I mean, that resonates with me. Since I was 6 years old, I've been going to summer camp. My children go to summer camp. It is probably the inflection point of my life. And as
That's great.
summer's coming, the spirit of it is building up. So
I'm going up there soon.
yeah, that's awesome. What's the last book you read?
Last book, what book I'm reading right now is Lincoln, the new Lincoln biography by John Meacham. And he's
You,
an incredible author, and it's a great book on Lincoln. I'm listening to it because he's such a great reader as
yeah,
well.
he's a fantastic author, fantastic
The
historian.
one
What's
before
the
that was When Machines Become Customers. That's a pretty interesting one.
who wrote
About
that one?
I don't have that in my head, but
I'll
you
ask
know, it-
ChatGPT.
yeah, it's
They'll
about Alexa buying things for you and
right.
buying and machines buying from other machines, and that's happening. It's
Wow.
pretty interesting.
What's the last movie or streaming or whatever other type of media you watched or
Um,
saw?
I watched Perry Mason, and it's a remake. It's nothing like
Yeah,
the Perry Mason of the 50s. It's gritty. I thought it was great. There are two
yeah.
seasons. I hope there'll be a third.
And
I thought
it's
it was awesome.
John Reese, right? The Scottish
Yeah.
or Welsh. He's Welsh actor.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know he's well.
Yeah,
He sounds wonderfully American, and
yeah.
and
I think he was on The Americans, but
it's
yeah,
he was, and it's a great detective story.
yeah. There's a lot of great Welsh actors, Tony Robbins, and the list goes on. Social media, friend or foe?
Well, look, I mean, it's useful for us. I'm really making a push on LinkedIn for myself. I think it's overall destructive. I think it's very bad for kids, and we do a lot at our camps. So for 4 or 8 weeks, they're off social media.
That's right.
I think it's destructive politically. So I think overall, it's not been a positive thing. but it's here, and we ought to work to reform it if we can.
Yeah. What do you think the world will look like in 100 years?
Oh, wow. Well, I hope if people wake up, it's not going to look like a burned cinder. I'm quite concerned about warming. I'm an environmentalist. I think we have to deal with that. We have to move faster. If we've done that, then I think it's going to be pretty cool. We expected flying cars by now, and we got pictures of cats on the internet. I think we'll have flying cars. VTOLs will be here. I think transportation will be very different. I think work will be very different.
Yeah.
I think AI will be doing a lot of work. I think a lot more people will be doing rewarding things with their hands. We need 25,000 welders in the United States. We need 50,000 truck drivers in the United States. There's lots of things to do, and we may have more time for creative pursuits, hopefully.
I mean, I think in the West, especially, there's been such a push for the individual and individuals in society. And what the future might bring is that a structure, maybe by omission, to bring people back together.
Yeah, I think that could be true. And I think, look, we're not also growing in population.
That's true.
Population growth of all major economies is slowing. So we have to let other people in. We have to figure out a process for that. Because, I mean, look at the folks who are leading all the tech companies. A lot of them weren't born here. They came here. And that's been the history of our country. And maybe we've got it screwed up how we're doing it, but we need to do it because we're not growing ourselves, and we need more workers if we're going to be competitive. So that's a change we have to make. It's a global economy. It's tied together, and we have to figure out how to continue to win in that. And to do that, we need to keep attracting people to our universities and then convincing them not to leave. I mean, right now you get a degree and we say, okay, bye, go back to your country. Oh, maybe you got to stay because they're really smart.
Yeah. Hey, look, there's room. Come on in and
there's
hang
lots
out.
Of room.
Right?
Yep.
There's lots of room. Well, I think that's given that there's room, that's an open invitation for the world. I think that's a good place to finish. We left some things on the table, as we like to do, to have you back and see how technology has advanced and disruption and innovation, and how your conversations from the keynote stage have made a difference with all of my clients out there. I can't thank you enough, Terry. You came in a little bit with a sore throat, but I think you found your stride.
Well, it's just another disruption, but that's what I like to talk about innovation, disruption, and AI, and mixing them all together to customize a recipe for the audience. That's where I want to be.
Awesome. Thanks for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our content. We'll keep bringing you the latest industry news and insights. Don't forget to follow us on social media so you never miss an update. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your next event, reach out to us directly or visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com.